My husband and I, both in our mid-40s, recently celebrated our 11th wedding anniversary, marking over a decade of companionship and shared experiences. Our journey together began with my husband already divorced, bringing into our lives a teenage stepson named Kyle. From the outset, Kyle's presence posed a unique challenge, his teenage years colored by the complexities of parental separation. Kyle's initial resistance to our union stemmed from the scars left by his parents' divorce, rendering him wary of welcoming a new figure into his life. Despite my earnest efforts to forge a connection, Kyle remained guarded, his resentment palpable in our interactions. Yet, undeterred by the hurdles, I persisted, recognizing the importance of patience and empathy in nurturing a sense of belonging. As our relationship with Kyle evolved, my husband and I embarked on a joint venture in our early 20s, pouring our energy into building a business from the ground up. The entrepreneurial journey was arduous, demanding relentless dedication and perseverance. However, our shared determination bore fruit, culminating in the successful sale of the business and an early retirement. With newfound freedom, we seized the opportunity to realize our dream of owning a picturesque seaside home, a sanctuary where we could savor life's simple pleasures in each other's company. In this idyllic setting, we found solace and fulfillment, cherishing the tranquility of our surroundings. Meanwhile, Kyle transitioned into adulthood, navigating the complexities of independence and forging his path in the world. At 18, he made the decision to move in with his girlfriend, Emily, residing in an apartment provided by her affluent family. While initially supportive of Kyle's newfound autonomy, we observed with concern his lack of drive and direction, opting instead for a leisurely lifestyle devoid of ambition. Despite our best efforts to encourage responsibility and self-sufficiency, Kyle occasionally reached out for financial assistance, his requests serving as a reminder of his ongoing dependence. Visits to his apartment revealed a disarrayed living space, reflective of his laissez-faire attitude towards domestic upkeep. Yet, amidst the challenges, my husband remained steadfast in his commitment to Kyle, offering guidance and support whenever needed. I often found myself overhearing heated arguments between my husband and his son, Kyle, revolving around Kyle's persistent unemployment and continuous financial demands. Their ongoing disputes over money created an uncomfortable atmosphere whenever the topic arose, but despite the tension, I chose to remain neutral and refrain from intervening in their affairs. This dynamic persisted for nearly a year. Then, last December, shortly after my husband and I returned from a vacation, Kyle called with troubling news. He informed my husband that he and his girlfriend had been evicted from their apartment due to unpaid rent. Apparently, Emily's father had reached his breaking point after witnessing Kyle and Emily squander away their days without making any effort to secure employment. Consequently, he had no choice but to kick them out. While Emily had the option of moving in with her sister temporarily, Kyle found himself without a place to stay. His mother was unwilling to accommodate him, given her new marital situation, and her husband wasn't keen on having an adult stepson living with them. Faced with this predicament, my husband asked for my opinion on allowing Kyle to move in with us. Despite some reservations, I agreed, believing it would only be a temporary solution to his housing crisis. Kyle moved in with us, and at first, we extended our support and understanding, setting up a comfortable space for him and respecting his privacy. However, as time passed, it became increasingly clear that Kyle had no intention of actively seeking employment or finding alternative living arrangements. Instead, he spent his days secluded in his room, engrossed in video games, while completely disregarding any household responsibilities. I found myself shouldering all the responsibilities of cooking, cleaning, and grocery shopping for the three of us. My husband, with his physical limitations, was exempted from household chores. While manageable with just the two of us, adding Kyle to the equation felt like taking care of an extra child rather than a responsible adult. Kyle's persistent laziness and lack of initiative began to strain our home environment, creating tension and discomfort. Despite voicing my concerns multiple times, my husband's attempts to reason with Kyle often ended in anger and slammed doors. Finding common ground or engaging in civil conversations about Kyle's future became increasingly challenging as conflicts escalated. 2 months ago, during a weekend trip to visit a family friend, we returned home to a disconcerting scene. The kitchen was engulfed in an unpleasant odor emanating from piled-up dishes attracting flies. Dirty laundry littered the floor, and pizza boxes lay scattered around, transforming our once peaceful abode into a chaotic mess. Upon confronting Kyle and his girlfriend Emily, who unexpectedly showed up, about the situation, Kyle nonchalantly explained that Emily's sister had kicked her out and she would be staying with us temporarily. His casual demeanor infuriated me as he brushed off the mess, claiming they were occupied with video games, implying that cleaning was my responsibility. Frustrated by his indifference, I confronted Kyle about their plans to move out, only to be met with a slammed door in my face. Stunned by his disregard for our concerns, I stood there, grappling with a mix of frustration and disbelief. It had become increasingly apparent that he harbored no intention whatsoever of shouldering responsibility for his actions or pitching in around the household. My husband, feeling utterly helpless, floated the idea of involving law enforcement, but I hesitated, wary of such a drastic measure. I believed there had to be a more amicable resolution to be found. I assured him that we would address the issue later, once emotions had cooled. That night, as I busied myself cleaning up the remnants of dinner, my husband had already retired to bed. Upon completing my tasks, I ascended the stairs, passing by Kyle's room. What I overheard stopped me dead in my tracks. Emily and Kyle were engaged in a conversation, the volume of which made it impossible to ignore. Kyle, with an air of smugness, regaled Emily with tales of how he was relishing every moment in our home without lifting a single finger to help. He went on to recount how I had been catering to his needs for months without a single complaint, likening me to a dedicated maid. Emily, rather than admonishing him, seemed to revel in his exploits, claiming credit for their scheme and suggesting they extend their vacation indefinitely. The realization that Emily was the puppeteer behind this charade, with Kyle as her willing accomplice, struck me like a physical blow. The cocktail of frustration and betrayal simmered within me, threatening to boil over. To hear them speak so callously about my husband and me, while plotting to overstay their welcome, left me dumbfounded. For so long, I had remained silent, respecting Kyle's space as my stepson. But the revelation that he viewed me as nothing more than a servant shattered the fragile semblance of familial harmony. Sleep eluded me that night, as I tossed and turned in bed, grappling with feelings of deceit and exploitation. It was abundantly clear that a reckoning was in order, a lesson that both Emily and Kyle would not soon forget. The following day, I decided it was time to set my plan in motion, quietly taking a stand against the situation brewing in my home. Without making a fuss, I made a conscious decision to stop attending to their needs. No more would I clean up after them or cater to their meals. Instead, I left their dirty dishes untouched, allowing them to pile up in the sink, and I conveniently forgot about their laundry, leaving their clothes unwashed and scattered around the house. Initially, they didn't seem to notice the shift, but as time passed, their indifference turned to frustration. They struggled to find clean clothes and plates, prompting inquiries about the neglected chores. When asked about the laundry, I calmly explained that I wasn't in the mood to work, subtly signaling that they would need to take care of their own responsibilities. My husband, sensing the tension, stood by my side, supporting my silent protest. He brushed off Kyle's complaints about the lack of clean dishes, and together, we began having our meals outside to minimize our time in the contentious environment indoors. With the groundwork laid, I moved on to the next phase of my plan, targeting their beloved gaming activities. Knowing their attachment to their gadgets and video games, I saw an opportunity to introduce a disruptive element. First, I strategically misplaced some of their essential gaming accessories, causing frustration when they couldn't locate them. Then, I introduced technical glitches, such as slow internet and frequent power outages, to further hinder their gaming experience. However, the real blow came when I began tampering with their saved game progress, either by deleting files or altering settings. The hours they spent advancing in their games were suddenly rendered futile, adding to their mounting frustration. As Kyle and Emily began to realize that something was amiss, the tension in our home became palpable, thick enough to cut through with a knife. Yet, I remained steadfast in my resolve, determined to send a clear message without uttering a single word. I decided to take a more subtle approach, observing silently as events unfolded. It wasn't long before their lack of groceries became a glaring issue. One evening, Kyle stormed into the living room, his frustration palpable, accusing us of neglecting their basic needs. My husband, usually patient, asserted firmly that it was time for them to leave. He couldn't continue to play caretaker for two grown adults. Kyle's protests fell on deaf ears as my husband stood his ground, unwavering in his decision. As tensions mounted, Kyle redirected his anger towards me, suggesting I should be the one to clean up after them. With a calm demeanor, I reminded him of his responsibilities and his reluctance to leave the comfort of our home. Emily, perhaps feeling the need to defend their presence, mentioned their stay was temporary, implying that I, as Kyle's stepmother, should accommodate them until they found their own place. That's when I chose to reveal their secret plan. I disclosed that I had overheard their discussions about turning our home into their personal vacation spot. The shock on their faces was undeniable as they realized their secret wasn't so secret after all. My intention was to teach them a lesson to make them understand the consequences of their actions. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place for them, they began to comprehend why the house was in disarray and their belongings were mysteriously disappearing. Kyle confronted me, accusing me of orchestrating their discomfort, while Emily, equally incensed, questioned my motives behind neglecting their needs. I made it clear to Emily that she was not welcome in our home, and while I had agreed to Kyle's temporary stay, I owed her no obligation to cater to her or attend to her laundry. It was time for them to face the consequences of their actions and learn that they couldn't take advantage of our hospitality without repercussions. I made it clear to both of them that returning their gaming equipment, which I had hidden earlier, was contingent upon their immediate departure. I emphasized that failing to comply would result in the removal of Kyle's bedroom door. Despite Kyle and Emily's initial shock, my determined expression conveyed the seriousness of my ultimatum. Witnessing their realization, I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing they were backed into a corner. The following day, they reluctantly began packing their belongings. Kyle grumbled incessantly about the gaming gear, but I remained resolute, reiterating that they would only retrieve it upon vacating the premises. Despite their protests, we stood firm, reminding them that their lack of independence had brought them to this juncture. As they left, I handed over their gaming gear, ignoring Kyle's resentful glare. My concern for maintaining a cordial relationship with him had waned. He had taken advantage of my kindness one too many times. With their departure, the atmosphere in the house lightened, and my husband and I finally experienced some peace. However, our relief was short-lived. My husband received a call from his ex-wife, who had been contacted by Kyle complaining about our actions. She criticized us for allegedly making Kyle's life difficult, insisting that we should have allowed him to stay longer until he could afford to live independently. She even went as far as to call me an asshole for how I handled things with her son. The criticism hit hard, causing me to question whether I had indeed been too harsh in my approach to kicking my stepson Kyle and his girlfriend out. It was a moment of reflection amidst the swirling emotions. Taking the advice of others, I decided to extend an olive branch to my husband's ex-wife, Haley, and invited her to join us for dinner. The aim was to open up a dialogue and dispel any misunderstandings she might have regarding the situation with Kyle. As the evening unfolded, tensions hung thick in the air, like a storm brewing on the horizon. Sitting across from Haley, I felt the weight of the situation as we delved into the topic of Kyle's eviction. My husband and I took turns narrating the challenges we faced while Kyle resided with us. We recounted his refusal to contribute financially or lift a finger to maintain the household, leaving us to bear the burden alone. The strain of constant financial requests, arguments, and disregard for our shared space had become an unbearable weight on our shoulders. With each word, I could feel the frustration and sadness bubbling to the surface as I recounted our futile attempts to reason with Kyle, only to be met with defiance and anger. It was a narrative of unyielding struggle and heartache painted against the backdrop of our efforts to encourage Kyle to take responsibility for his future. As the conversation unfolded, I noticed a subtle shift in Haley's demeanor. It was as if the fog of misunderstanding was slowly lifting, revealing a newfound understanding of our plight. She confessed that she had been unaware of the extent of Kyle's behavior and expressed gratitude for our honesty in sharing our side of the story. It was then that the full extent of Kyle's manipulation became apparent. I detailed the incident of overhearing his and Emily's conversation, where they callously plotted to take advantage of our hospitality. Kyle's boastful remarks about my role as a glorified maid echoed in the room, casting a shadow over the table. In that moment, Haley listened with a mix of shock and disbelief as I revealed Emily's role as the mastermind behind the chaos. It was a revelation that left us all reeling, as the true extent of Kyle and Emily's deception came to light. But amidst the turmoil, there was a glimmer of hope, a newfound understanding between Haley and us, forged in the fires of truth and transparency. She had been actively participating in the plan to overstay their welcome and exploits our hospitality. The dinner marked a turning point, allowing us to clear the air and find common ground. It became evident that our actions were not only justified but necessary to maintain a healthy and harmonious home environment. After listening to our version of the events, Haley asked my husband what they should do next regarding Kyle. My husband expressed his love for his son and willingness to help him find a new place to stay, but emphasized that Kyle had to demonstrate a commitment to change by actively seeking employment. Haley shared her concern for them, knowing they were currently staying at a friend's place with nowhere else to go. After extensive discussion, a decision was reached. Haley agreed to talk to Kyle about taking him in for a period of 3 months, with the condition that he actively search for employment during this time. It was also decided that once Kyle secured a job, my husband would assist him in finding a new place to move into. We ended the conversation with a sense of relief and understanding, hopeful that this arrangement could be a positive turning point for Kyle's future if he was willing to take matters seriously and make a change. Update: 2 weeks later, Kyle and Emily broke up. Haley called my husband today, 3 weeks after our dinner discussion about Kyle and his future. Despite her efforts to reach him, Kyle had been unreachable until today, when he finally contacted Haley, visibly upset. It turns out that Kyle discovered Emily had hooked up with a mutual friend, leading to a massive brawl between them. In the aftermath, Emily decided to end the relationship, stating that she no longer wanted to be with Kyle. Hearing this news hit us hard because we knew Kyle was deeply in love with her. Despite their shared tendency for laziness, we genuinely believed they were a perfect match. However, it seems that reality had other plans. Emily swiftly moved on to another guy, leaving Kyle in a tough spot. Haley then offered Kyle a place to stay, with conditions reiterated from our dinner conversation. It seems Kyle has finally realized the gravity of his situation and agreed to Haley's terms. While we can't be certain how long his newfound determination will last, one thing is clear: our doors are closed to him indefinitely. Knowing Haley's no-nonsense approach, if Kyle doesn't secure a job within 3 months, he'll likely find himself out on the street. Perhaps Emily's breakup with him will serve as the wake-up call he needs to get his life together and achieve financial independence. Meanwhile, my husband and I have been enjoying a peaceful existence in our home. Gone are the mornings filled with laundry and dirty dishes. My husband can now stock the fridge without fear of his snacks disappearing. We're even planning a trip to decompress from the stress of the past month. Life has returned to normal. As for Kyle, if there are any new developments, I'll be sure to provide another update. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I've received numerous requests for an update. I'm pleased to report that life at our seafront home has returned to the peaceful haven we envisioned. The house exudes serenity, free from the drama that once consumed it. My husband and I have reveled in uninterrupted tranquility, enjoying the simple pleasures of a clutter-free home. Following his breakup with Emily, Kyle moved in with his mother, Haley, adhering to the conditions we discussed. Their breakup served as a catalyst for positive change. While the initial 3 months were challenging as he actively sought employment, Kyle has shown resilience and determination. It wasn't an overnight success story. There were numerous setbacks and moments of frustration along the way. Yet, as the weeks unfolded, Kyle's determination to turn his life around only seemed to grow stronger. He diligently attended job interviews, polished up his resume, and reached out to potential employers with renewed vigor. True to her character, Haley stood by Kyle's side, holding him accountable every step of the way, ensuring that he learned to stand on his own 2 feet. While the transition wasn't without its difficulties, it proved to be a pivotal and transformative journey for Kyle. My husband, filled with a mix of relief and pride at Kyle's progress, felt it was time to broach the subject of the next steps. In a heartfelt conversation, they discussed Kyle's newfound employment and the importance of taking further strides towards independence. While my husband expressed his genuine pride in Kyle's accomplishments, He also stressed the necessity for Kyle to make the transition from Haley's place to his own. Understanding the gravity of this transition, Kyle took the initiative to scout for a suitable apartment. Together, we visited various places, witnessing firsthand the remarkable changes Kyle had undergone. In a gesture of sincerity, Kyle even took it upon himself to prepare a heartfelt dinner for us, using it as an opportunity to formally apologize for any hardships he had inadvertently caused. My husband, visibly moved by Kyle's growth, encouraged him to extend his apologies to me as well, recognizing the unwavering support I had provided throughout. Kyle, though initially hesitant, humbly acknowledged his past wrongdoings, expressing genuine remorse. As we basked in the warmth of the evening, there was an undeniable sense of accomplishment and optimism for Kyle's future. When the topic of Emily arose, Kyle shared candidly about the challenges of moving on from their relationship. Yet, amidst the pain, he had come to a profound realization. Emily's influence had shaped many of his past decisions, and it was time for him to carve out his own path forward. He wasn't proud of it, that much was clear. As we delved deeper into the aftermath of his departure from our home, Kyle shared with us the intricate details of his experiences. One aspect that stood out was the noticeable shift in Emily's demeanor towards him. Initially, he attributed her change in behavior to the eviction, assuming it had left a bitter taste in her mouth. However, as time went on, he began to notice subtle signs indicating otherwise. It was when Emily started showing interest in his friends that Kyle's suspicions were confirmed. It became apparent that her actions weren't merely a reaction to the eviction but rather a reflection of her desire to seek new connections. Despite the initial sting of betrayal, Kyle remained resilient. In our conversations, we expressed our empathy for Kyle's situation and offered words of caution regarding the possibility of Emily attempting to re-enter his life now that he had found stability with a job and his own place. Kyle, however, assured us that his resolve remained steadfast. Having been through the pain of betrayal, he had no intentions of giving Emily a second chance. Since our initial dinner together, Kyle and I have forged a much stronger bond. The tensions that once lingered between us have dissipated, replaced by a newfound understanding and respect. It's been heartening to witness Kyle's growth and success in both his personal and professional life. My husband and I have made it a point to extend invitations to Kyle and Haley whenever possible. These gatherings have provided opportunities for open and honest conversations, allowing us to address past grievances and clear up any misunderstandings. Kyle's genuine remorse for his past actions has been evident, and his consistent efforts to rebuild trust have not gone unnoticed.